Hello and welcome to another episode of Fire 5 at Phoenix. My name's Zoe. I am the coach here of Phoenix Life and Wellbeing Coaching. And you have tuned in, if you've tuned in live or if you are watching back on one of the channels, you have joined us for Fire 5 at Phoenix. Each week I am joined by a guest. Today I'm joined by Hazel. Hazel will introduce herself in a minute. Each week I'm joined by a guest. That guest brings 5 questions on the topic of the month. And this month the topic is our beliefs. So the last episode was joined by Fenella, this week Hazel, and we've still got another couple of guests lined up. So great topic this month. Self-limiting beliefs are enabling beliefs, so powerful. And we've had some really good conversations so far. So I will get Hazel to introduce herself. Please like and subscribe wherever you are watching this. And please, if you are hearing this conversation and you think somebody else would be interested in hearing what this conversation is all about, feel free to share and let them know that this is happening. So Hazel, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm a virtual assistant now, which has been about 3 years. Before that, I was a veterinary nurse, but I had a little person and circumstances changed, and I just decided I needed to be self-employed and do a career shift. So I did a complete, not sort of progressive, it was just complete career change, and here I am. So yeah, I like helping people with their content and supporting small businesses, because showing up online like this and in written form is ongoing and tiring. So I make it a bit easier. That's my aim.
You certainly do. And I think it's great, isn't it, for people like myself who want to be spending their time with clients and spending their time engaging with people, to have somebody like you in the background that can take some of that pressure off all of the things that needs to be done to keep a business going, the marketing and all of those things is fantastic. So you're doing a great job. Little person is homeschooling at the moment, so little person may appear this morning, although has been given some things to keep her entertained. But if a little mini Hazel appears at any point, you might hear the conversation digress.
Yeah,
but it's all good. It's all good. So Hazel, you have 5 questions for me then.
Yeah, I'm excited because I've watched loads of these. So I was like, oh, I get to pick 5 questions.
Yeah, you get to pick 5 questions. And so if you haven't watched any of these or listened to any of these before, I don't get to see the questions beforehand. So whatever happens next. So I'm hoping, the idea behind all of this was that, the guest gets to bring conversations, topics and conversations that were important to them, rather than me talking about what's important to me. So Hazel, far away.
So I'm going to do them in the order that I thought of them, because I did think quite long and hard about these.
Okay.
So my first one was, do you believe mind over matter is actually possible?
Oh, that's a very good question. Yes, I think it is. I think the how we think, what we think can happen, has a huge impact on how we believe when we go into it, how possible it is to make it happen. And I think the mindset and that self-belief, or the belief in, and that inner confidence in that we have the resources, we have the tools to make things happen, is a big part of that. So I do think mind over matter is possible. I do think it has a bigger impact than I think we're always necessarily consciously aware of. I think we probably know that in the background, but I think when we're planning things, when we're going into things, I think sometimes it's very easy to just go straight into the action and the doing, rather than the taking that time out to think about what's needed and think about how we're going to make that happen, and reassure ourselves of that confidence that we can make it happen before we do that. So certainly in the sporting world, I share this story quite a lot, that when people in the lifting world would walk up to the platform, you can see the conversation that's going on inside their head, and you could almost predict whether or not they would make that lift or not, based on that conversation, that inner conversation that was happening. And I think that self-belief, telling ourselves that we can, having that confidence that we believe we can, is a huge part of it.
So you've just sort of stolen my second question in your example.
Doing that, I'm sorry.
Because I know I'm always intrigued about your strong woman stuff, and I know now, but I can imagine you're still quite competitive. And I do some horse riding, and obviously it's a little bit different because you've got an animal with its own mind underneath you. But I was going to say, how do you make, when you're going into competition and you're nervous and that's because you care, how do you have that conversation in your head? How do you make yourself believe it's possible? And any tips, especially when it's not all under my control or other people? Not everything in sports under the person's control, is it? Like one-on-one with a bar, I suppose you are. But
well, and I think sports like life, isn't it? It's not all under your control, but there is a huge amount that you can control. I think for me, when I was competing, it was something that I had to learn to do, because it's a very different mindset to, if you haven't been competitive in sport. It was something that was very new to me and fell into it quickly, and the level of competition escalated quite quickly. So it wasn't something that, in terms of training my mindset, that competitive mindset, that was just as short as the amount of physical training I had been doing. So the two kind of ran alongside. For me, it was about using what I'd learned in training, that kind of confidence in ability from training. So knowing that, if you've worked hard in training, that you've lifted what you needed to lift in training, that the chances are then you've got that confidence of you've got what it takes to go in competition. And I think a lot of people, myself included, it's very easy to get your focus diverted into who else is there, what else other people are doing. And it's very easy to kind of get caught up in all of that. So it's that kind of tunnel vision of what you've done in training, what you're there to do on the day, and controlling what you can take control over. But that transfers over into life now as well. They're life skills as well as sports skills. You work hard to learn and to train and to understand and develop your skills and your knowledge. You get more confident the more you do things. You get more confident in your ability. And the more you practice, the more these things become easier. And you get more confident with them. So it's the same for training. But I think that competitive atmosphere kind of takes it up a notch, which takes some getting used to. And again, that's the experience of, the time that I was competing was quite a relatively short period of time in comparison to a lot of the other women in the sport. So I think that probably, again, that time to learn how to be in that environment, and the more pressure with the level of competition as well. And you could see, some girls would completely thrive under that pressure and really be able to use it, and other girls not so much, and so we were all trying to, everybody tries to find their own way with it. But for me, it was more about, putting the work in training, and then having some set sentences that I would repeat to myself to sort of, again, just remind myself that I'd done the work in training, that I did have what it takes, that I did deserve to be there. Because how often do we tell ourselves that we're here by chance, or we're here by accident, or we're here because somebody else, that it's not in our control. But just that reminder for me, I think I had a couple of statements that I would just keep repeating to myself, that I've trained hard, I have the right to be here, and I've done everything that I can to do well today. And just to put that time to put it to the test. So and that comes up now in with work things, with training courses. It's like, you deserve to be there, you've earned your place at the table, and you've put the work in, and you've put the effort in, and so now is the time to put it into practice. It's kind of the same thing for me.
That's quite cool. I might have to go back and get those 3 sentences in your voice and put them in my headphones next time I'm doing something. Because I've learned headphones to block out everybody else so I can focus on me, but maybe what I'm playing through them.
Yeah, and so I think the other thing that I did was try to replicate in training that competition environment. So, certainly the last few weeks of training, really take it as if I was there to try and, the muscle memory, and brain's a muscle memory as much as getting that physical muscle memory of, the walking up to the bar, of where everything is positioned, but also the conversation that goes on in your head at that time, and just repeat, so that when you get to competition day, you are, as you place your hands in a certain position, you naturally kick in that positive affirmation, or those positive statements that help remind you, as much as you're reminding yourself about the physical elements, you're reminding yourself of the mindset elements as well.
I wonder if playing that down the headphones to the horse will help in my situation. Worth a try, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know how it works with animals, but I would imagine that if you were to replicate that in that environment of saying certain things when you're
sorry, what we said about can't control what everybody does.
Exactly. So we control the controllables, but I think, if you were to say certain things, as you get on you probably already do. As you get on the horse, you probably, say certain things that keep the animal calm. You probably say you do certain things as you say certain things with instructions. And I've never ridden a horse, so I'm completely
going to change that one day.
Yeah, but I think it's that element of, you probably give instructions verbally as you give them with some kind of physical trigger as well, from what I know. So again, it's that thing of you have a physical trigger, you are giving a verbal, even if it's an internal verbal trigger at the same time.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah. They're just very perceptive on if you're trying to convince yourself. So I guess, like some of the people, when you're competing, you try and tell yourself it's okay, but you're not quite believing it yet.
Yeah.
They pick up on that little bit of, you don't believe this.
Yeah.
So yes, that's good tips. I'm definitely gonna.
I hear that animals are very good at picking up on energy as well. So if you've got that nervous energy that's more around nerves rather than adrenaline confidence energy, that they would pick up on that. They would pick up on the nervous energy, and that's what they respond to, rather than a verbal or physical instruction.
Yeah.
And we do that too. Sometimes that's why we feel that disconnect when we talk to people, because the energy or the body language is saying something different to what the person is saying. So we as humans pick up on that as well, because there's a disconnect between what you are seeing in comparison to what you're hearing.
Yeah. And I'm having to check my questions because I can't remember what's next now. I'm too busy listening to you and getting lost in the moment. I could just carry on with that question and find out more. So, my next one is sort of linked in my head. And it's I think it's a complicated one. You might go, oh, this is easy. But there are situations where your beliefs don't always match the person you're having to deal with. So it could be work or family. So that can be quite hard. So how do you deal with a situation where you've got to be around someone where you just really don't see the same, it's not morals, maybe it is beliefs, morals. How do you cope with that and not let it frustrate you or wind you up?
I think that the difference is that beliefs, morals, ethics, values are very individual to all of us, and there's no right or wrong. The beliefs that we hold, or the things that are important to us, are influenced and based on our own experiences, and part of our upbringing and experiences with people, situations that we've been in, people who have influenced us as we've grown older. I think for me, it's about trying to understand where that person's coming from, but ultimately having a respect that is their belief. That's what they choose to believe is is right for them, but it's not a right or wrong. You know, there's not, it's not fact, their beliefs. So it's not something that you can argue is fact and show evidence to prove that they are wrong, because ultimately it's a feeling, it's a belief for them, shaped by their experiences and shaped by their view of the world. I think there's great discussion to be had in that, but I think ultimately sometimes that gets quite heated because we feel like we want to defend what we believe to be true. And sometimes in those discussions or conversations, it feels, when we try to share what we believe and why we believe that it can feel like the other person is trying to change ours, or we're trying to change theirs. And then we get very defensive because that's what we believe to be true. You know, and I'll be the first to admit, I've been in those conversations where it's, you know, you do feel a connection to your beliefs. You do feel that's because it's part of you. It's part of who you are as a person. It is part of that. So I think when we feel that that's being criticized, or we feel that somebody has a belief or a way of thinking that is in conflict with that, then it can get very difficult to try and get past that, and especially when it's in conflict with what you know, where there is a complete opposite end of the spectrum of, this is what I believe, this is what you believe. I think there's lots to learn from people who think differently, believe differently. I think there's lots to learn in those conversations. But I think it's also knowing when to acknowledge that, okay, that's what you believe, this is what I believe, and step away from that, because there's a relationship or a friendship or a partnership or, you know, a working relationship there that you want to protect, that you want to respect, and that ultimately the beliefs can be quite a small part of that person and that connection. So I think sometimes it's knowing when to step back from that and say, look, we know we have different opinions, different thoughts, different approaches on this. We've had different experience in life that have shaped that, and respect that person has the right to feel differently and to see the world differently, even if we don't see it that way. And that, I think that's tough. But I think that the world is part of what makes the beauty of the world, isn't it? Is that we do all see the world differently, and we do all get to see things, excuse me, and experience things differently. I think it's very difficult when we are with people who don't always share that. But we're, you know, humans are creatures of connection. We're creatures of identity. We like to find people who we identify with. And so sometimes when you identify with people on certain levels, but then there's one level where it's a complete disconnect, that's really hard, you know, and it's hard sometimes to work with that. But I think there's lots to learn in that as well, of, okay, how did you get to that opinion, and how did you get, you know, what makes you think that, what's informed that, what are your experiences that have shaped that. So I think there's an opportunity to learn, there's an opportunity to try and understand things differently, but I think it's that you know, and it's a reminder to myself as much, you know, it's that putting that ego of need to be right, need to know more, putting that ego aside to listen and understand and hear somebody else's experiences and why they feel the way they feel.
Yeah, I guess it's the listening side of the communication, isn't it? And they don't necessarily have to listen, I suppose, as long as we're open to listening. We can learn from them. If they choose not to, that's their lookout. That's something I definitely need more practice in. I'm quite feisty and stuff, so that's quite a good point to think, okay, I'll just listen.
It's
develop myself,
isn't it? Like you said, you can't control that they listen to hear your experiences, but you can control you listening to them. And I think the reframe of you're not, you don't need to convince them to think something different. They don't need to convince you to think something different, but you can share the stories and experiences of why you see the world through a different set of lenses.
Yeah. Are you picking up sound of the different set of lenses in the background?
It's got a different level of what is important right now.
Yes. Imagination. It's great.
Important to her. What's important to her is she shares with you what she's been doing. She probably thinks that an hour has passed and now's the time to come and share.
Her belief of indoor volume and outdoor volume is one we don't agree on. So who's going to listen to who there will be an interesting one. But yeah, no, that's really, I mean, we've talked before, not when we're on things about stuff like that. So yeah, it can be a work in progress, can't it?
Yeah.
You can still, like you say, you don't have to change someone else's mind to make a positive impact on you.
Yeah.
Even if you don't agree with them, you can still learn from your experience of being around them. If it makes you a better person, you've gained, even if they've chose not to. It's still a positive, I guess.
Yeah. And I think it's difficult, isn't it, sometimes when we feel we need to ask for people to respect our point of view.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like we feel we shouldn't have to ask for that. And sometimes we do. Sometimes we have to remind people that I don't need you to convince me to see things differently. But I would like you to respect that I have my point of view and we have different points of view here.
I'm just going to push my door too slightly because otherwise you're all going to get the soundtrack to Frozen at high volume.
Oh, that's not a bad soundtrack to have in the background.
It is on loop when she only knows 3 lines. Everybody might never tune in again. It's all fun, homeschooling.
So this is life. This is life as it is now.
Yeah. So I will skip down to a different question because she's given me a nice in. That thinking of how much time we're spending with the kids and the impact of the world situation over the last calendar while has been, what beliefs do you think would be really important? So I know you're not doing it now because you're lucky your little person is not little anymore, but if you went back, what beliefs do you think would be really important to sort of not give them, because you don't give them beliefs, do you? You kind of guide them, and I don't know how you describe it, because you don't make them think a certain way, but what would you try and empower them with at the moment to help them with the future and the challenge of coming out of this at some point, whenever that may be?
Yeah, I mean, I think what children are great at is being present. Like she's right in the moment right now, isn't she? She's there, she's doing her thing, she's got a huge amount of enjoyment from it, and she's completely in her moment, in her present. And I think children are great at doing that. Like, like we just said, the concept of time is, especially dependent on the age, but their concept of time is very different. So for us, we know that it's been a year because we get, we have these conversations, we remind each other how long this has been going on for. But for children, it's just it's one more day, and what are we doing today? That's what matters to them. What are we doing today? What's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? When can I play with this? And that's all they need to know. So I think that's a great skill in itself, which we let go of as we get older, because we start to worry about the past, we worry about the future, we worry about all of the things that may happen, the things that may not happen, because that's how we risk assess and we plan, and we try and plan around that. Whereas the children are so much more present. So I think we can learn that from them. But I think in terms of what we can help them learn is, I think a lot of it is about making the most of, what the time that they have. So I know that homeschooling is a challenge for parents. Homeschooling is a challenge for them because they're not in with their friends, but they are experiencing parts of life that they wouldn't necessarily have if they were in school. So it's about, you know, making the most of what's different, you know. And I know, you know, for you, that there's certain elements of your work that she will find out more, like her dad's work, that she gets to experience a little bit more. So they're life skills, they're not classroom based skills. There she is making a little appearance.
Sneaky.
It's the life skills that she's learning, you know, the engagement, the interaction, and it's all just really important. That they might be missing out on some elements, but then gaining lots of others. So
Yeah,
I think, you know, that it's how you respond to things is what also they will learn from at the moment. So, you know, I think
not always a good thing at the minute.
that's the challenge, isn't it? And I think children learn by what they see and hear rather than what we tell them. So how you respond to things will shape their beliefs. That will shape how they learn to respond to things. Their learned behavior will come from this as well. So, you know, seeing how you respond to things, and I think it's a good reminder for us, isn't it? And same for me, you know, he is bigger, he is older, but I still, you know, how I respond to things now is still just as important, because it's what I teach him, or what he learns from me, because it's not necessarily a teaching, it's a learning from their point of view, I think, of what's important. So, and it's this quality time, isn't it? It's this quality time of her knowing and seeing her working parents and the work ethic, and the fact that there's lots of things in life that we have to juggle, and things that we can control and things that we can't control.
Don't squash them with the door.
Don't squash the door.
Oh
dear.
Fingers really were in the door.
Oh dear.
Sorry. And we have learned not to put fingers in the door when working around the corner. It's okay, we're all right. Oh, sorry. Yes, we are learning to juggle.
And that's it. It is learning to try and find your way through it, and so I think it's not necessarily what we teach them, it's what they learn from us. And I think work ethic, learning that, you know, from you know, the girls' world, that, you know, seeing mum working, seeing dad working, seeing how mum and dad work together to make work and to look after me in the process. It's, you know, they're all really important things, that, but I don't know that it's necessarily a teaching thing. I think it's more what they learn in this experience, and I think we can shape that to a certain extent, but I think a lot of it is just what they take from it, and they shape themselves.
Oh, I just get her back a second. Come here, Tap Tap. You're all right, they're all right. Oh, come and sit.
Oh dear.
We're just going to have a third interviewee on your interview, because we just need a cuddle.
Do you have all your fingers?
Can you wait?
Still there?
Yeah, this one.
Oh, good.
This one.
They both work.
So we need to teach them to look where they put their hands when they go round a corner.
It's part of being present, isn't it? Something far more important than...
Because that's still in, that's us. Okay.
Why is there two of us?
Oh, I don't know. And we want to know all the technicalities. But yeah, it does show I should have been more present when I let her out and put the door behind, because it wasn't my full attention, and there we go. Lessons learned.
That's something else that they'll learn, is that we sometimes we have to do it.
I just did it.
Oh, well done. She's learning to look after herself when mummy's busy. Guilt.
Good old bottom lip there.
That was kind of what sort of got in. That was how the question came about, like the guilt, and it was sort of going to start off being about mum guilt, and then I thought, no, it's what can we teach them to help them with the future? Like, what do I wish someone had said to me when I was younger to help me? And I think that empowering beliefs for them is what they need, isn't it? We've got quite a thinker here, so she does have her moments. She's quite good at already, which is quite scary at her age, of remembering the past and joining things together and carrying them forward. So yeah, that's quite good. Focusing more on the moment. Well,
it's also a good skill to have, because that's where she'll learn to take the learning from those memories and apply them into what comes next. But I went back to work when my son was 6 months, and I worked full time, and that mum guilt it always kind of sneaks in, and I think it's what they learn from us, that work ethic, that drive and determination, but also seeing you succeed, seeing how you contribute and what you get from work will teach her of what a working life is, and
that things don't just come in the post or on Tesco shelves. Some things have to be worked for.
Yeah, but also what the rewards of when you work hard and when you can, when you work towards something and you are successful, those are the things that she will see that you don't learn necessarily in a classroom. They're not on the curriculum. Those life skills of communication, and communication when you feel emotional, and communication when you feel under pressure, and communication when you're trying to communicate elsewhere, and they're all things that we learn through experience rather than learn in a classroom. And those are the things that they learn from us, that time around us at the moment, that extra time around us at the moment, they will pick up from. So
she's just going to get the list of questions, because I've completely derailed my brain as to where I was now. Where did we get?
It's good to have the virtual assistant has a mini assistant. So
yeah,
job to have,
and she does like joining in and helping.
So
and she's the reason I did it, so that's the point. Exactly. That's good. So the last one was I don't know whether it's a belief one or not, but it kind of felt useful. So phobias are kind of negative beliefs that have usually got there through some kind of random experience. So how would you give anyone tips for reframing those? And I kind of thought, because there's a lot of people not liking needles that are facing multiple vaccines and things in the future, and how do you help people get round that?
Phobias are beliefs either from experience or that perception fear. So I've seen, when hypnosis is great for phobias, but also just that talking through the positives rather than talking through the fear of, I would imagine you're probably doing vaccinations with her rather, in terms of COVID vaccinations, but when you take children to have the vaccinations, it's like, oh, this is going to stop you from being sick, and it's like, you minimize to help with that fear, don't you? And I think that's part of where that belief is that we maximize the fear rather than minimize the fear, and that's part of changing that belief, is looking at that and what it means. So I know that hypnosis is great when it is a full phobia. Hypnosis is great to change that, and I've seen it done not through hypnosis, just through just talking around it and read the reframe of what that looks like. But I think phobias is an interesting one, because where the brain captures an experience, and then it's the brain trying to keep safe, and so it's that overprotectiveness of that. But I think certainly I've seen, hypnosis is definitely a good option for helping with that, and I've certainly seen quite a lot of people who work in hypnotherapy that are helping with that at the moment, because the vaccines are coming out thick and fast. So
yeah, see, I used to be one of those people scared of needles, but like I said, situations with this little one were quite traumatic. So I went from being terrified when I was pregnant to everything happening so often and so out of my control that I didn't have time to be scared. And by the time she was born, it was like, do what you like, not bothered anymore. And now I think I will, for the first time ever, be skipping into the doctor's going, yep, get on with it. I want it done, let me out.
That's almost there's two beliefs there, isn't there? There's the belief around the fear of the needles or vaccinations, but there's also the belief in wanting to keep you and your child safe. And so sometimes, in that hierarchy of beliefs, we have one belief that becomes more powerful than the other. And it doesn't necessarily take it away, but it minimizes that second belief of, okay, what's more important here? What's more important here is a happy, healthy child that can go out and play, and for you, that being able to go out and integrate with people again and be able to get some sense of normality back in life. So that belief becomes stronger than the negative beliefs that you hold around vaccinations or needles or whatever that is. Doctors,
I think I am.
Have the phobia of doctors, don't they? It's not what happens in the doctor, it's the actual getting to the doctors itself. So it's to be very different for different people.
Yeah, I know mine was the fact that someone else was using the needle on me. Like, if I'd been given it and told, give it to yourself, it would have took me a while, but I would have found that easier. But I think I just had a desensitization program by the end without planning it. And it was kind of, I had enough experiences of, okay, I had one and I survived, I had one and I was all right, I had one and I managed it. And the confidence grew from, I've done this multiple times now. So
you've had a belief that's been shaped by experience, but then you've had new sets of experiences that have helped you to challenge and change that belief that you held.
Yeah. So I guess it reframed without me consciously attempting to do so.
The experiences that you had initially that shaped that belief have then been overridden by new experiences that have shaped a new belief that takes its place.
Yeah.
Which is essentially what we're all trying to do with any sort of negative beliefs or beliefs that limit us, is we're trying to experience new things that help us to see the world differently, to reframe how we see the world, so that we can see it differently. But I think sometimes, and I know you've heard me say this often enough, but we need to be our own critical thinker and challenge what we, when we, quite often, we will think that our beliefs are the right belief because it's shaped on our experiences. But we do need to still challenge that. I know other people will challenge that, but we do need to challenge that as well. Is this belief helpful to me? Is this belief true? What else do other people believe, and why is that? And that's part of the listening and sharing of experiences, isn't it? Of seeing things differently. But sometimes the beliefs that we hold, we feel that they're helpful to us, but actually there's a lot of evidence or a lot of other ways of seeing the world that might be more helpful to us.
Yeah, we just kind of
wrong. It's what's best, and it's what we understand and how we see it.
Yeah, we don't always, we could start off with a belief one way, but we don't always acknowledge that situations change around it and it's not current anymore, I suppose. Yeah.
And that's part of the ego element, isn't it, of needing to be right, needing to know more, of being able to accept that now you're seeing something different that changes your opinion on things. It changes the way you see things. I think a lot of people worry about stepping forward and saying, I used to believe that, but now I've seen something different, or I've read something different, or I've spoken to different people, and actually that's really made me think about whether what I did believe was true, and but it's us taking ownership for that. It's not somebody forcing that on us. It's us being curious, of us being inquisitive, and like the children are with the why. It's because they want to understand it. They don't just want to accept that what you say is true. They want to understand why that's true. They're shaping their own beliefs as they do that. And we stop that, don't we, as adults? We don't ask why often enough.
Yeah, that's so true, actually.
We're not curious enough in the way that children are. So again, it's something else we can learn from them.
We learn more from them.
Yeah,
they're not afraid to change their mind, and like that's completely, like, you ask them what they want to be when they grow up and you'll get a different answer every week, won't you? Whereas I think people feel like once they've said it, they've got to stick by it. And it is quite hard as a grown-up. Well, I say hard, but it's quite common that we've said it, so we've got to do it because we've said it. We can't go, actually, I've had a rethink, and we can. Just got to learn to.
Yeah. But
and logicalise it, whereas they change their mind illogically, don't they? Just on how they feel, just because they can. It's fun.
Because they've heard something different, and so now they believe this.
I wonder how many people, I didn't have it, luckily, but there was a lot of people that had that with Santa lists this year, didn't they? They asked the kids what they want, sent the list to Santa, and then changed their mind, and poor Santa had to do a U-turn. That's what springs to mind.
But I've heard, I love the expression childlike curiosity, of really wanting to explore and find out. And I think that's, I think that's a lovely childlike quality, isn't it? It's the fun, the play, the being present, and that curiousness. Is that a word? Curiousness? Curiosity that children have, which I think is so special, but something that we could do with more of, I think.
Yeah, definitely more fun and curiosity. Hence, we knew we weren't going to get through a whole session without her joining in. It's just too much FOMO going on.
She wants to be involved.
Yeah.
But she's still got all her fingers and all her toes.
Yeah. Trust me to do that when I'm talking to you. It's recorded. Some of the powers that be will be knocking on the door by 2 p.m. because they've been watching it on their coffee break.
We haven't got time for me to list all of the injuries that my son picked up. So it's all part of the growing experience.
Yeah. Well, we actually managed to get through all of my list. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I had to take one out by the end.
Well, I think, I just really appreciate, it's clear that you have a lot going on and a lot to juggle. Oh, she's so cute. So I really appreciate that you've taken the time. Thank you for letting me have Mummy. Thank you for letting me thank you for sharing Mummy with me.
We're done.
We're done.
You got a thumbs up if you can see that.
You've got lots going on, so I'm really, really glad that you have shared your time with me. Great questions, great conversation, great interruption. What a cute interruption it is.
Yeah, cheers.
But thank you very much. So this will come out across all of the platforms. As I said at the beginning, do like and subscribe so that you don't miss out. There's an episode coming out every week at the moment, so there's lots of these conversations coming through. But thank you so much, Hazel. Enjoy the rest of your day, and everybody else take care, and we will see you very soon.
Bye. Thanks, Zoe.
Bye.